This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education. Can we all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're just getting it. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. We have the agenda before us. Everybody's had a chance to look at that. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Ms. Rabin? Who's the second? Ms. Applewell? All those in favor of accepting the agenda? That'll be 8-0. I'm sorry. With that, the items before us are the items on the consent agenda. It's essentially minutes and approving the revision to the summer school program start and end dates. Can I have a motion to put the consent agenda? Ms. Erickson, second, Dr. Francis. All those in favor of accepting the items on consent? 8-0. With that, we're here at the lovely Greenwich High School, the biggest school we've got. And we're going to hear from, welcome from Dr. Chris Winters, headmaster of Greenwich High School.
Thank you very much, Board Chair Scher, and the rest of the Cabinet, Dr. Gilday, and everybody who is invited. Welcome to Greenwich High School. Yes, it is the biggest school we've got, and we're very proud of it. And I want to start off by thanking the board for thoroughly confusing me by having a Thursday night board meeting on a Wednesday. And when I don't show up to school on Friday, you'll know why. So Greenwich High School is a collaborative community of learners dedicated to academic excellence, personal integrity, and interpersonal responsibility. And I want to flesh out a little bit about how we accomplish those goals. This year we are very focused on personalized learning, as is the whole district, as is part of our strategic plan. And we're very excited. We have picked out a piece of personalized learning that we think is a high leverage strategy to get us going or strengthen the way we personalize our learning now. Student reflection and ownership of learning. And what I see in class after class is significant efforts to engage with that. I often write to the faculty every Friday talking about some of what I see, and if some of this is repeated from there, you'll know why you're hearing it. But just a couple of examples of where personalized learning really takes hold. I go into an English class and the students have written a one-paragraph essay analyzing a Shakespearean sonnet, and they're setting goals about their writing. They're identifying their strengths and weaknesses, and they reflect on their goals. And as they reflect, they can use feedback from the teacher, which in this case was extensive. They can use feedback from their peers as they co-edited some of their work. They can analyze their own work relative to a rubric. And what the task was to not only reflect on your goal, your progress towards your goal, but to cite evidence of how you're making that progress or where you're not. It's really an exciting process as they continue to reflect, revise, and do more writing. I go into a science class and the students start the class with a quick assessment they take online. It gives them results, and based on the results, if they got a lot wrong or a few wrong, that directed them into what sort of material they would then use to continue studying. Students also had the choice of choosing both options, which was interesting because most of them decided to go with that choice. But in all our classes, we see students researching, we see them working collaboratively, we see them posing and pursuing questions. It's exciting to see how a staff can engage in an initiative like this at Greenwich High School. I also want to briefly mention Windrose, a major investment on the town's part to create a new environment. I'll call it an environment, an alternative school, even though we don't like that word alternative, but it's a wonderful off-site environment for our students. It's in its first year. I was over there this morning. It is a very calm and engaging place where currently about 18 students are very much steeped in the learning process. It is in its first year. We're only 2.5 months in, but we're encouraged what we see, and we know there's a lot of work to go. I had planned to really highlight some of our athletic accomplishments this year. Under the well-known, increasingly difficult situation, our teams are absolutely excelling. But I read Elisa's speech later, and she's going to document the details of that. Let it be said that I think Gus Lundeen and our athletic coaches and all our athletes are just doing a superb job, and they're making us very proud to be Cardinals this year. So the Vision of the Graduate has 13 capacities, one of which says, advocate for ideas, causes, and actions. And I want to do that now. I don't usually use the headmaster's welcome or the principal's welcome to advocate for something, but given that we are in budget cycle and there's something that's very dear to us and important, I choose to use a little bit of time to do that. Currently, we have 5 assistant dean positions at Greenwich High School, 3 of which were added this year with funding from the district, not the high school budget, and that funding is not in the budget for this year currently. It's on the priority wish list side of the ledger, which usually means it needs to be pushed in as opposed to pulled out. So I want to advocate for that this year. And I want to, right now, and what I want to do is just go back and give a little bit of history of where these positions came from. Back in 2012, Greenwich High School undertook a fairly significant restructuring of our administration. Our goal was to increase the instructional leadership of our administrators. And what do we mean by that? We mean reducing the amount of time they spent on tasks that we felt could be handled by other people, such as running some of the PPTs that are critical but are very time-consuming, reducing their time commitments to some of the low-level behavioral incidents, and increasing the amount of time that they spend in classrooms providing targeted, specific feedback to teachers. That was our goal. We did this by eliminating the housemaster positions, all 5 of them. We combined program and house leadership in the case of 3 major programs. We created the Office of Student Life, which has the Dean of Student Life as its head, and we had 2.0 assistant deans at the time divided up amongst the 5 houses, 0.4 in each house. Their job was to not only help students make wise choices in their behaviors, but to build positive school connectedness and spirit. And I think everybody will agree, and there's a lot of data to support this, that they've done their job. We did this by reducing 2 administrative positions at Greenwich High School at great pain and expense. In fact, we saved the town quite a bit of money since 2012 by having 2.0 teacher level positions instead of 2.0 administrator level positions, the difference in those salaries. At that time, we also had a psychologist who was here at Greenwich High School, funded through the district, that helped us run a lot of our PPTs. When she retired, that position was not replaced. As a result, during the restructuring, while we did, I think, improve the level of instructional leadership of our administrators, we still struggled with the amount of time that was being spent in the special ed capacity. And we looked for ways to alleviate that or tweak it, as we were saying. While having these discussions, Mary Ford came up with what we thought was a brilliant idea. She said, what if we increased the assistant deans to 1.0 in every house and had them run the major portion of special education, which would free up our house administrators to do the jobs that we really wanted them and needed them to do. At the same time, we lost 1.5 coaches in special education and another 0.5 coach who helped us run PPTs. And we thought, well, we're losing, but we're gaining, and we thought this was a really good thing. It's 2.5 months into this position now, and the anecdotal evidence is very positive. I don't think there's a person in this school who wouldn't say this was a very positive change. We were dismayed to learn that those 3 positions are not in the budget, and we hope that the BOE, before the BET, will strongly consider putting those back into the budget. We consider these vital to Greenwich High School. Thank you very much for giving me this little bit of extra time, and I appreciate and hope the board has a wonderful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Winters. We're at an interesting part of the board's agenda. It's a rare occurrence, but it does happen occasionally every 2 years. We have the opportunity. Unfortunately, 2 members of the board will be leaving us. They'll be going on. They're retiring, I guess is the best way to say that. after long and able service on behalf of children in the town, not only on the board and other things. And we're going to spend a little bit of time recognizing them. We have a long list of people who want to say really wonderful things about their service, and we're going to start from hearing from First Selectman Peter Tessie.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen on the Board of Education, professional staff, and guests. I'm delighted to be here tonight to join in the praise and thanks to two of the board's retiring members. We know full well that Greenwich is blessed for many reasons, but I believe the most important reason is because of our people. It is our people who contribute to the value and the breadth of enrichment in this town, and it begins truly with those people who have custody and care for our most precious resource, which is our children. So tonight, I am pleased on behalf of the citizens of the town to enthusiastically and graciously stand up to thank Debbie Applebaum and Laura Erickson for their enormous contributions to not only the Board of Education in our schools, but to our town at large. I often think we take for granted when we attend these meetings and we're here with a lot of focus and tenor and emotion on the subject at hand, that the people that we're speaking to and appealing to are volunteers. They're here because they want to be here, but they receive no remuneration, and they sacrifice many evenings outside of their homes with their families to support our community and, again, our most important resource, which is our schools, which serve our children. So I have tonight the pleasure of presenting a proclamation in their honor, which is one of the few things I like to say that I can do unilaterally in this government of ours. There's very little autonomy given to any one position, but this is something I can do on my own. So I'm very proud to do it, or pleased to do it, and I will share it with all of you. Whereas boards of education spend countless volunteer hours on behalf of the children of Greenwich. Whereas time, effort, and care have been spent in attending board meetings to review, discuss, and/or act on board agenda items. Whereas board members spend many hours in the preparation, review, and presentation of the annual Board of Education budget, reviewing capital and facility improvement and maintenance plans, negotiations with the Greenwich Education Association and Greenwich Organization of School Administrators to reach Board of Education Town of Greenwich objectives. Whereas board members respond to numerous letters and emails received from interested town residents and parents of students in the Greenwich Public Schools. Whereas board members are liaisons to many town boards and commissions. Now therefore, I, Peter J. Tessie, First Selectman of the Town of Greenwich, do hereby proclaim November 15th, 2017 to be Board of Education Member Day in the Town of Greenwich, and urge all citizens to applaud the time and commitment that Board of Education members Debbie Applebaum and Laura Erickson have given to the Town of Greenwich from 2013 through 2017. So a round of applause. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I know that Debbie and I meet quite frequently in the Whole Foods parking lot where we conduct some business offline. So I look forward to seeing you in the produce aisle the next few weeks.
Thank you very much, Peter. With that, the next person who wanted to recognize both Laura and Debbie is State Representative Fred Camillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Peter did such a great job reading those proclamations that, if you read two in a row, it'll really bring the place to a grinding halt, so I won't do that. It is my pleasure to be here to present, what are probably the two newest citations issued by the state of Connecticut. They're literally a couple hours old. They were introduced in the General Assembly by State Senator Scott France, Representative Libby Florin, Representative Mike Pacino, and myself, honoring the service of both Debbie Applebaum and Laura Erickson, honoring your service, congratulating you on a job well done, and wishing you the best of health and happiness in all your future endeavors. Good luck to you.
Fred, thank you so much. Now we're going to hear from our esteemed superintendent, Dr. Jill Gilday.
Both Laura and Debbie, thank you so much for making my transition as smooth as it could possibly be. I appreciate you both more than you'll know. Laura, your thoughtful leadership, I think all of us will remember long after you leave your chair. I wanted to tease you about your financial acumen because you always say that that's not all you want to be known for, so I think that thoughtful leadership is the key. And then also your modeling both short and long-range thinking is much appreciated. Thank you so much for your service. You're going to be missed, but I have your phone number and I know where you live. Debbie, what resonates with me when I think of your leadership has really been the learner experience, and I think our students who serve on the XCOM panel would also agree with that, because when we work together, it's always looking at the whole student and all of their activities and interests and trying to make sure that that experience is present in our system K-12. And I appreciate that you have that focus, that really student-centered focus. You've also been an outstanding community liaison and networker for us, and I think that role is one that you fill quite naturally. I also know where you live. So I am hoping that you will stay connected and involved, and I somehow know that you will. And I want to thank you both for your time and dedication, and we have a district gift for you.
Yeah, it's a school, yeah. An engraved school bell, it's a cool thing. With that, we're going to hear from the Greenwich Organization of School Administrators, Jen Benson-Vago and Brenda Brush.
Good evening. On behalf of GOSA, I'm here too. I'm Brenda Brush, I'm the assistant principal of Jillian Curtis. On behalf of GOSA, oh yeah, thank you, Peter. We would like to thank Laura Erickson for her years of service on the Board of Education. Laura's been a board member since 2013, served as board chair during the 15-16 school year, and during her tenure has served on many committees, including long-range facilities planning, strategic plan leadership, capital improvement, the RTM Education Committee, Policy Governance, the GHS Music Instructional Space and Auditorium Building, and as well as the chair for the 18-19 budget and Superintendent Search Ad Hoc Chair. This long list is a testimony to her commitment to our district, families, and students. GOSA appreciates Laura's vision to provide a world-class education for every student. Our co-presidents have often spoken of her willingness to listen to their concerns and her interest in the perspectives of building leaders. The principals have enjoyed seeing her every year at the opening ceremonies throughout the district. Laura is always willing to roll up her sleeves and support our work at the school level. As board chair, Laura's worked diligently to build a climate of respect and understanding. She's reflective and always prepared for discussions while asking pertinent questions to enhance everyone's understanding. She's always been willing to confront difficult issues and maintain a balanced perspective in order to arrive at a solution fair and equitable to all. Laura's calm demeanor, quiet strength, and positive outlook has been widely respected and appreciated by our GOSA membership. At board meetings, Laura is always prepared and eager to engage in honest and open dialogue, always ensuring she has all the relevant facts needed before making a stance. Laura, we thank you for your leadership and guidance, for putting the children of Greenwich first, and for the countless hours you have donated to our community. We wish you the very best.
Good evening. My name is Jen Bensavango, and I'm the proud principal of Old Greenwich School. Tonight I'm here representing the Greenwich Organization of School Administrators. I have had the privilege to know Debbie Applebaum for almost the entirety of my 20-year career in Greenwich. We have a long history of sitting side by side, first on the School Improvement Committee at Central Middle School, then as committee members in the Junior League of Greenwich, and finally as a trusted leader in her years on the Board of Education and valued member of our Safe School Climate Committee. To say that Debbie Applebaum is a community leader and supporter of children would be an understatement. For years, she has given back to the Greenwich community as a PTA president at North Street, Central, Greenwich High School, a member of PTAC Council, and a member of the Junior League of Greenwich, where she developed their partnership and education program, and more specifically, the family literacy program. Her dedication to the children of Greenwich has never wavered. Her recommendations and decisions have always been in the best interest of our students. She's a thoughtful and approachable leader who continuously fought for racial balance in the schools, facility utilization, and the achievement gap. Debbie was quoted as saying, "We need to look at what makes our most successful students successful, and what resources do they possess? How can we duplicate those resources for those students who might be on the other end of the spectrum?" She was always the first to call and visit our summer school site every year. And as I knew she would, she even sought me out before this meeting to pay her condolences on the unexpected loss of a teacher at Old Greenwich last week. No matter if it was a member of the PTA, Junior League of Greenwich, or Board of Education, Mrs. Applebaum has always been vested in the whole child. She's been a proponent for the arts and our athletes, and recognizes that a school day doesn't end with the closing of textbooks, but there are lifelong lessons the vision of the graduate tries to tackle. On behalf of the Greenwich Organization of School Administrators, we thank you for your dedication to the children of Greenwich, the teachers, the administrators, and the parents. You will be greatly missed.
Thank you, Brenda and Jen. Now we'll hear from the Greenwich Education Association and its President Carol Sutton. Careful.
So I agree with everything I've heard so far, and I learned more things than I ever knew about you, Debbie, and Laura, even after 4 years of experiencing you on the board. So Debbie, soft-spoken presence, the board secretary extraordinaire, positive, always thoughtful, and always thinking of every student in the district. Debbie, I think your contribution was epitomized for me during the school start time discussion, when regardless of where the conversation was going, you always brought it back to the student who may not have access to the bus, who may not have somebody who could bring him or her to school for something early. You're always thinking about that kid who might have to walk in inclement weather. How will they get here? Will they actually get to have that extra hour? And I think, Debbie, what makes you remarkable, and you should all know this, is that a lot of people would say, well, they can take the city bus, or we'll just let them take the city bus, and that's good too. And so Debbie, in order to actually prove or disprove whether that was a viable option for these kids, took the city bus herself, got herself a pass, took it from her home, which is just within the bus line, and did that experiment. She tried it out. She did use the scientific method. And to me, that was just remarkable and a testament to her commitment. So that type of approach, that epitomizes Debbie for me for GEA. Debbie, you often gave voice to those who didn't have one. And wow, we're going to miss you incredibly. Laura, I'm going to circle back to you. So Laura, what stands out for you is that you are the best model for attentive, active listening that anyone could ever have, like right now. And we appreciate it. You are really the big picture person. So often well, it didn't happen that often, but every once in a while the board got lost in the weeds, and as they were walking around in the weeds, the chair would call on you, Laura, and you would make a point or ask a question that would be the path that the board could take out of the weeds, back to what we're really here for and what the work is that you were elected to do. And that is to make sure that every student in Greenwich has a fine education, just like your kids did. You would mention that pretty often. And you also, I think, were a person on the board who believed in the process and who honored process over anything else. And for that, I think sometimes you were an outlier in some votes. And for that, you gained my admiration and the admiration of everyone I know, because you would say, wait a minute, we don't do things that way. And you knew that, and you stuck with that. And that, to me, is absolutely amazing. So both Debbie and Laura, we're going to miss you so much. We want to thank you for actually seeking out and listening to the teacher perspective, to taking the teacher's perspective to heart, and to always demonstrating that you valued us as professionals. We're really going to miss you, and we love you dearly. Thank you. Now I am going to give them 2 gifts, and I won't tell you the controversy about this slogan because it doesn't matter outside of GEA, but so they're going to get a bag. It takes, for all their things they're going to do in the future, you can take it with you on all your adventures. Takes GEA members 25 years to get one of these, but they only needed 4, and that's what it is. It's kind of sturdy, it's nice, and we'll even give you one of our stickers also. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Carol. Now, Karen Hirsch on behalf of the PTAs.
It is with much appreciation for their dedication and service that PTA Council would like to take a moment to thank and recognize Debbie Applebaum and Laura Erickson for the considerable time, dedication, and effort that they have unselfishly given to the Greenwich Public School District over the past 4 years. Ms. Applebaum and Ms. Erickson have been vital to the continual growth and success of the Greenwich Public School District during the past several years. They've kept their focus on what is best for our students and families in the community, while also maintaining fiscal responsibility. PTAC appreciates that Ms. Applebaum and Ms. Erickson have consistently put our students' needs ahead of any personal agendas. They have never been afraid to express their opinions. They have asked thoughtful and pointed questions that help PTAC better understand the important details contained in numerous reports, and have shown that they view our students as individuals with different needs and goals. These incredible women both stood up and took leadership roles within the Board of Education. Laura Erickson is board chair and Debbie Applebaum is board secretary and board liaison to PTA Council. During their tenure, they worked with 3 superintendents and have still managed to drive important initiatives. They helped to oversee the creation and implementation of the district's strategic plan, aided in introducing the 15-year master facility plan, were instrumental in finding and hiring a highly qualified superintendent, and navigated the often choppy waters of school start time, field remediation, and budget preparation. While serving on the board, Ms. Applebaum and Ms. Erickson have demonstrated teamwork, collaboration, and shared leadership in their roles as Board of Education members, and we would like to sincerely thank them for their commitment to all of these areas and to many other areas that they have been involved in as Board of Education members, past PTA members and leaders, and as parents. We want to send you off a little thank you from Council. The gift of a pen as a sign of academic achievement and personal appreciation and respect is an old tradition. It has been said that the pen is mightier than the sword, and we know that you have wielded them well in support of our students in the past. And now we hope that you will use these to write the next exciting chapters in your lives. It has been PTA Council's privilege to work with each of you. We will miss you terribly, and we wish you luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Karen. Now, last but not least is actually the board for the board. First, we're going to hear from Dr. Gaetan Francis.
Somebody left their notes.
I did. I'll just leave it there.
I have the pleasure of thanking Debbie Applebaum for her service. We've heard from all different aspects of our community, and I didn't realize we're going to be hearing from quite so many people. And one of the points I was going to make was that, in fact, contribution to the board is really something that's a contribution at so many levels, to the community, to the students, to each other, to our schools, and I appreciate what you've done in all of those ways. And also personally, as a new board member, it was really wonderful to have you and all of your experience there to support me, always ready to help me, to lend your wisdom, and to give me a different perspective or help me understand things in a better way. I was listing all of the many areas that you've worked on, and I reached out for help because I was quite sure I would have forgotten something in there. And I won't read them all because there really are so very many. But there was a couple that I wanted to point out, and I think one, so clearly close to your heart was the work you did in the high school with the students. And again, that's why we're here, and that's so important. Certainly, I appreciated the time I got to work with you. PGC, which was that's a lot of work, and school start time committee, that was a lot of work too. So we had a lot of thinking, a lot of talking, and a lot of big issues to review, and we didn't always agree, but I always appreciated the perspective, the ability to look at something from a different side, which is always important because we all bring something different to the table, and that was important for us to do that. I had forgotten the food services, which also is important. And many other things as we are now looking at the Cardinal Stadium. I think that the important work that went with that. Clearly, the SEL and FACE work as part of the strategic plan, involvement with the website development, which as I recall, I think got awards. And so I think that was really some great work and engaged a lot of the community members. So I think that was really quite remarkable. So I want to thank you personally for your welcome, for how you helped me to transition. I can't believe you're leaving, and it's been 2 years since I've been here. But I appreciate that. I know all of the board appreciates the contributions that you've made as well as the community. Thank you very much.
And last but not least, Jennifer Dayton.
I knew we would have so many meaningful, serious, deep thinkers tonight, so I took a different route, and this is intended to be very lighthearted. I have the honor to pay tribute to Laura Erickson tonight. So the decision is to pay tribute by telling you the things I've learned from Laura. First, how to read the budget book upside down and backwards, but never matching Laura's stellar photographic memory. What to do when your superintendent decamps to a new battle 20 miles to the east. How to choose which design of logo should represent the strategic plan. Triangular, circular, or obstacle course. What to do when town hall steals your head of operations. Steal their print shop. How to warm up your microphone voice for board meetings by rapidly repeating, Pound wise and penny foolish. Pound wise and penny foolish. How to write a superb RTM resolution about chaos and havoc wrought by state budget talks. How to expertly recruit a new GPS leader after Greenwich, England apparently surrenders its authority as keeper of time, and all time-related questions are now referred to our Greenwich superintendent. When to push back and when to pull forward in leading the board and a 10,000-person learning community. On behalf of the board, thank you for your outstanding service.
And now we get back to the regular and the mundane. But unfortunately, there's something that occurred in the district that is not mundane, and it's really quite sad. Unfortunately, this past week, we lost one of our own, a treasured member of our learning community, Mr. Frank Gasparino, who was a teacher at Old Greenwich School. It was sudden and shocking, and thank you to the leadership, particularly in the district, particularly at Old Greenwich School, who did such a fine job supporting that community, particularly who was impacted. But of course, across the whole district, we're impacted whenever we lose one of our own. So if we could stand for just a moment and have a moment of silence thinking of Mr. Gasparino. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family. Hopefully they heal and as rapidly as they can. With that, we'll move on to the regular business of the board with our public hearing. First, we'll hear from Greg Goldstein and then Alyssa Lambert from GHS Student Government.
Chairman, sure, I learned that today. Dr. Gilday, members of the board, good evening. First off, for those of you that don't know, Student Government's Executive Committee has a privilege to meet monthly with Dr. Winters, Dr. Gilday, and Ms. Applebaum over some really good pizza post. Chicken parm is my favorite. We are very sad to say that her term is over and she'll be leaving us. On behalf of Student Government, we'd like to thank her for her never-ending support and interest to promote the goals of Greenwich High School students. Ms. Applebaum, you have my school email if you ever want to go to Pizza Post. Always say I had spoken with Dr. Winters last week about the new budget plan. When he had mentioned the additions and cuts, I was surprised to hear that the 3 new assistant dean positions added this year are not in the budget. While I don't personally have the experience with the special education side of it, I do have experience with the spirit and the activities they bring to their individual houses every day. I hope that the board will advocate for inclusion of these positions as you discuss the superintendent's budget. I can tell you each student would say that they make a huge impact on our school community. As my position is to represent the 2,700 students at Greenwich High School, approximately, I didn't know the exact number, it's changing every day. It is only appropriate that I use my platform to stand up for the students, and right now they're struggling. They are not struggling with school start time, but school end time. I had spent last night with many of you in the gym of Central Middle School discussing the light situation. Since the clocks have changed, I've been approached with the questions such as, how are you, as student body president, going to fix this light problem? While single-handedly as a 17-year-old student body president, I can tell you I cannot. But what I can do is tell the board the situation that the kids are in. Kids are playing in unsafe conditions, getting home late, and are missing class. The fact that the board has moved forward with some litigation is great. On behalf of the future students of GHS, who will hopefully benefit from all of this, we really do thank you. However, now it's an extremely lengthy process for the current students, and we need to help them now. The problem will continue to get worse, and the fastest way to solve this is needed. Yesterday, with no option, the football team had to travel to practice at New Canaan High School under the lights. They departed school around 3:30, returning around 7:45 at night. That leaves the rest of the night to possibly take a shower, eat, and most importantly, do homework. With what GHS refers to as a soft homework cap, these students can have up to 2.5 hours of homework even if they don't have one honors or AP class. That means without a second to breathe, they're already up to 10:15 at night. Current students, the ones that are feeling the brunt of this, are calling on the Board of Education to find a temporary fix in light of this litigation. I am not here to tell you the solution, yet to speak the voice of the students at Greenwich High School. We want to be able to participate in all of our after-school activities like we always been able to, without the heightened level of stress which is leading to a lack of sleep. Student government and the student body is offering their full support to the Board of Ed, whether that means polling students, creating a petition, or whatever else it might take. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Chairman Scher, Dr. Gilday, and members of the board. For those of you who I have not yet had the pleasure to meet, I am Elisa Lamberg, Senior Class President. While Greg addressed many of the relevant topics within the student body, I'll address the upcoming events for student government. So this Friday, we have our annual blood drive for the American Red Cross. Every donation will save up to 3 lives, and we have filled 71 out of 88 available spots. We have also begun planning for SRO. So if you don't know what SRO is, it is a show that is created, run, performed, and organized entirely by the senior class. It's a great tradition that's been in GHS for years, and it's also the best way to connect with the senior class by the end of the year. We are currently getting together all of the overall chairs to start getting the ball rolling. Building on the very powerful assemblies we had at GHS with veterans of the Vietnam War, student government plans to send personal letters to Operation Gratitude, an organization that sends care packages to active military service men and women. With Veterans Day last Saturday, every student government member will write a short note at our mass meeting tomorrow and will be sent out as a continuing appreciation for those who serve for our country. In the midst of all the athletic craziness that Greg has now mentioned, GHS athletes are still persevering. The boys soccer team is the FCAC champion, the football team still remains undefeated, and the field hockey team made it to state quarterfinals, but they are all teams that are still reliant on our fields. In addition, the girls volleyball team and girls cross country team are FCAC champions, and the girls swimming and diving team is the FCAC and state LL champions and will compete for the state open title this weekend. We have also had 10 athletes sign national letters of intent last week. Lastly, every class is actively fundraising. The freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior class plans to partner with local businesses, hold movie nights, and sell class t-shirts. Overall, the year is off to a great start, and we plan for more to come. Thank you all.
Carol Sutton again.
So, good evening again, everybody. I won't tell you who I am. So, we are, let me just find where I am. So, I just want to start by saying that Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and I'm sure that you are looking forward to a well-earned and much-needed rest, as is probably everyone in the audience and everyone in the district. So, this evening, you will take action on the calendar for the 2019-20 school year. And it's likely that not many teachers have actually seen the drafts because they've been busy working in their classrooms. But I would say that the sense of the association, unscientifically gained, is that full days of professional development, such as last week on Election Day, are of greater value than early release days. The pressure on an early release day to teach well and then get themselves ready to absorb, to do whatever they're doing, it's intense. It's like 2 days in one. And so for that reason, we'd like you to seriously consider version A as opposed to version B being the status quo. And for those of you who are GEA members, you can take a look at that in the document. So on school start time, as our student body president suggested, we're not quite there yet. And the last sort of official on-time score for the buses that was put out by Kim Eves, I counted it at about 85% on time. And I can't really imagine that Greenwich is satisfied with a B. It may be better than that. Is it getting better? Less than a B. Okay. Well, either way, I don't think Greenwich. Okay, I don't think that Greenwich is satisfied with a B. They never have been. It's because every percentage point below the perfect 100 represents stakeholders who are not able to do their work, either the work of teaching or the work of learning, in an optimum condition. So this includes students who are starting the day frazzled without breakfast, or missing class and valuable instructional time because they have to get out early for sports. This is parents who are worried, starting their days worried or late to work, frustrated drivers who are just trying to get from point A to point B at the wrong time, except you can never really figure out what the right time is, and not to mention the potentially dangerous, overcrowded conditions on the roads, and so on, which has already been expressed. The status quo is not acceptable, and I know you know that. So, board members, if the superintendent and the administration have ideas to get to that A+, we hope you will support her and support those ideas and not settle with the status quo for an entire year. Interestingly, many of the most vocal proponents of the change referred to that lost year when they were talking about wanting to get more sleep. In other words, I don't want to have my student have a lost year because they're so stressed and not getting enough sleep. Well, we don't want the students to lose a year because we can't fix something that may be able to be tweaked easily and wait another year. So as I said last month, we're really looking forward to the results of the surveys, and we are really interested in the data points and what would convince anyone to make some changes. I've also been looking into the survey, and I want to, as I understand it, and I could be wrong, the surveys were going to be given to parents and teachers. And I wondered about whether or not there's going to be a student survey, and I'm glad you're nodding because we asked them for their opinion before it happened, and so certainly they need to weigh in now that it has. So you're going to hear more from GEA during the budget process. For now, we want to recognize the work that Ms. Lori O'Donnell and her team put into putting together this package. It is, we even like the format. I like the format. Despite its length, it's clear, it's easy to navigate, especially for people who are not adept at accounting. We also appreciate that the superintendent has enumerated and assigned dollar figures to 30 items, to 30 bona fide items, 30 bona fide needs that the district has that do not fit in the budget proposal due to budgetary constraints. These include a couple of our favorites: a GOSA position for physical education and wellness coordinator, which I know you're tired of hearing about, but I've spoken about it for 3 years in a row. We really appreciate that on her list is money to maintain our smartboard technology. This has been on the chopping block before, even though an outcry comes because it's used nearly every day by almost every teacher in the district, and so we appreciate that. And the resources to maintain the 5 assistant dean positions at GHS at 1.0, because the 5 individuals who are doing that job and who are in this room are already proving their worth and the worth of the position to the school community many, many times over. I'm not going to say any more about that because I think there are speakers who will address that as you go forward. So thank you, Dr. Gilday, for opening the door to a serious conversation about what the district needs to thrive, even if the ask ends up being greater than the guideline given to you by the BET. It's courageous, and I hope the board is equally courageous. And finally, while we're on budgets, I'm sure maybe you're aware that the state of Connecticut got to a budget agreement, and one aspect of the final budget was an additional 1% tax on the salaries of certified educators. And it is a tax. Don't let anyone tell you it's not a tax. The hit to the average teacher in Connecticut is $750. And while that doesn't sound like a lot, a decrease in take-home pay is not exactly the best way to start a new year. And so now the House of Representatives, just to add insult to injury, part of their tax reform eliminates a $250 deduction that all teachers take to compensate them for the up to hundreds, even $1,000 that they spend for their students in their classrooms and for the things that make their classrooms wonderful places. If you want to support teachers, that's you guys and anyone, please give a call to Jim Himes, Chris Murphy, and Richard Blumenthal. They're on our side, but they need to hear from us, and let them know that teachers are tired of having the target on their back. So thank you, and with that, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Now we're going to hear from Karen Hirsch again.
Music on the way up here. Slides back, sir. Dr. Gilday, Chairman Scherer, members of the board and cabinet, Dr. Winters, who just stepped out, and guests. My name is Karen Hirsch, president of the PTA Council of Greenwich. I will start by saying PTAC would like to extend their condolences to the family of Frank Gasparino and to the staff, students, and community of Old Greenwich School. We were sorry to learn of his passing and know that it will take time for his family, students, past and present, and the school community to heal. His incredible enthusiasm and energy will be sorely missed. However, his legacy will live on through the many students whose lives he enriched through education. Much has changed since I last stood before you. We are saying goodbye to 2 dedicated Board of Education members, and we'll soon be welcoming in 2 new ones. We've gotten our first viewing of the superintendent's budget for 2018-19, and we are finally moving forward with the New Lebanon building project. But much has remained the same. We are still working out numerous kinks with a new start and end times of our school day, and we're still waiting to hear about the next phase of personalized learning, just to name a couple of examples. But one thing is for certain, with all that has changed and all that has remained the same, there is and will continue to be one thread that ties and binds them all together: the need for productive community engagement. As you know, this year voters turned out in record numbers to support education. We have elected numerous new engaged men and women, and as always, we have had many engaged and interested residents come out to speak to the board on a variety of topics. It is apparent that Greenwich residents share many common values and concerns, such as academic achievement, the health, well-being, and safety of our students, and the need for fiscal responsibility. Our parents have a lot to say on these and many other topics, and in speaking up, we are also teaching our children civic responsibility. We recognize we have to give in order to receive, which is not always an easy lesson, nor to learn, but it is an appropriate one in this season of Thanksgiving. Schools often provide parents with their first major opportunity to get involved, and this type of engagement is vital to the success of our public schools and our students. It enables teachers, administrators, the board, and other elected leaders to understand what parents believe is really important when it comes to our children's needs. It's important that we harness the recent upswing in civic engagement and invite parents and residents to get even more involved. However, it would be a whole lot easier to do if the Board of Education agenda and documents were posted in a more timely manner. This year, board documents and agendas are posted only 48 hours ahead of the meetings, which is not nearly enough time for the public to read and absorb the contents and incredible work that has gone into create meaningful feedback. In fact, tonight's agenda was not posted until after 11 a.m. yesterday, with the updated enrollment report being posted at 1 p.m. The enrollment report is one of significant importance as it contains key details that work to drive our budget and will have lasting consequences for the current 15-year master facilities plan. This report relies heavily on data provided by an outside source rather than internal projections, and it seems to overlook the possibility of several new housing projects on the western end of town. It does not seem to take into account the fact that enrollment at schools like New Lebanon may be artificially down due to the fact that many of the students who live in that catchment area are attending other schools in town, not necessarily due to choice, but out of compulsion. Once the doors to the New Lebanon open, wouldn't we hope that these numbers will right size? That would mean 53 outbound magnet students could return. And then there are other elementary schools, International School of Dundee, Hamilton Avenue, North Miamis, North Street, and Julian Curtis, on the cusp of outgrowing their physical space. It's exceptionally important to make sure that parents and taxpayers have the time to delve into reports such as this so that they truly understand the district's needs and can become engaged and active partners and advocates to support our budget and the master facility plan. Another way for citizens to get involved is by attending the Board of Education meetings and hearing firsthand what you, the board, is discussing. PTAC was happy to hear that the board's considering revising their meeting calendar for 2018-19 to create topic-specific work sessions. We feel that these would be helpful to both the board and engaged members of the community and allow us to take a much deeper dive into many important areas of interest and needs. PTAC does have one area of concern with the new board calendar that we'd like to share. We appreciate that the board takes the time to recognize our students and highlight all of the incredible achievements and awards won. It is truly a testament to the quality of our public schools and the amazing potential of the students that they serve. However, changing the start time for meetings that honor these students to 6 p.m. may mean that some students and parents will miss these recognition ceremonies. We respectfully ask that you consider starting those meetings at 6:30 instead. We understand that oftentimes the recognition ceremonies lead to longer and later board meetings. However, it is important to allow time for these attendees to arrive. As PTAC has found great value in attending board retreats, we're happy to see that they're being scheduled in advance. However, we do ask that prior to voting on those suggested dates and times, you wait until the new board is seated to discuss and vote on those, as it is important all board members are able to attend. As we look forward to next week's Thanksgiving break, we would like to take this final moment to thank you for all that you do for our schools, our students, our educators, and public school families, and we wish that you all have a well-deserved rest and time of reflection in this Thanksgiving season. Thank you.
Now we're going to have community speakers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 6. Starting with Lorraine Termini, Assistant Dean at Greenwich High School. I'm sorry. Lorraine, I gave you the wrong title.
It's okay. You can call me anything you want.
It's funny. I just said the same thing to Chris. I said, Chris, you can call me whatever you want. I respond to it all.
I work with teenagers. They call me a lot of things, okay? Good evening, everybody. My name is Lorraine Termini. I'm the Dean of Student Life here at Greenwich High School, and it's my 6th year in this position. Before that, I was a special ed teacher here at Greenwich for 25 years and a housemaster for 4. I'm also a resident of Greenwich, and my 3 children went through the Greenwich Public Schools. The Office of Student Life includes myself, 5 assistant deans, the school resource officer, and the director of student activities. Our overall charge is to work with over 2,600 teenagers to make good choices. So I just wanted to stop there and think about that, okay? That's our job. Through their high school career. Although discipline is part of the responsibility of our office, our main goal is to ensure that students are connected and safe in school. To achieve our goal, we use a research-based model of intervention called Positive Behavioral Intervention Supports, or PBIS for short. This model addresses both academic and behavioral areas using a 3-tiered approach. The first tier happens in the regular ed classroom, and it works for about 80% of the students. Tier 2 addresses a smaller group, about 15%, and Tier 3, an individualized approach, which really is about 5% of our population. The assistant dean role is critical in working with that 20% of the population who needs those additional supports. Many of the students that fall into the 20% are the students in the district with the highest needs. The assistant deans support students in the following: developing contracts for academic and behaviors, working on attendance issues, developing behavior plans to help students make better choices and understand why and how they need to change their behavior, meeting with students for a check-in and check-out procedure, participating in PRT and PST at the high school, meeting with parents regularly. Those are just to name a few. The role of the assistant dean is to better connect and support students who need a higher level of service. This year, the assistant dean is a 1.0 position. By having the role full-time, there's more flexibility for the assistant deans in helping students when they are not engaging in the PBT process. Having spent 35 years of my life and my career in Greenwich, living here and having my children go through the Greenwich Public Schools, I think I'm in a unique position to know what worked and what hasn't worked. And I know that the assistant dean position has worked and will continue to work for that 20% of the students who need a little bit more help. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bridget Berry, Sheldon House Administrator.
Dana Todd, Folsom House Administrator.
And we're speaking for our fellow house administrators. Making a big school small. That's what houses do. We keep an eye on kids, we follow their progress. The assistant dean has added big time to our tight house teams. They're our house cheerleaders, our first responders, and our all-around troubleshooters. Our assistant deans help us support the whole child, academically and emotionally. Certainly special ed students and students with special needs, also the needs of all students as we try positive interventions and implement the RTI. A full-time AD has been an integral addition to our team this year. We hope to keep the full team together to support students. As Mr. Scher noted in the beginning, as did Dr. Winters, it's a big school. We need strong houses. Thank you.
Amy, did you want, yeah, we're just going down the list here. I didn't know if it was a group thing or an individual thing.
Well, I'm here
Great.
representing the assistant deans.
Perfect.
It's so
Thank
funny
you.
you knew your order. We're very organized, you know.
And then we're going to hear from Rob Boyd.
Thank you, Chairman Scher, Superintendent Gilday, board members, colleagues, and neighbors for affording me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Diane Chapetta Fox. I'm proud to hold the position of one of the 5 assistant deans at Greenwich High School. I come before you with my fellow assistant deans tonight as a taxpayer, a parent, and an educator in Greenwich Public Schools for 22 years. The position of Assistant Dean 1.0 was first posted in March of 2017. The printed posting was never presented as a pilot. It is with a heavy heart and much contemplation that I decided to leave the position I held with the GPS for 11 years, Director of Student Activities. Most of you know who I am and how dedicated I am to GHS. I'm not only a 4th-generation resident of Greenwich, but a graduate of GHS, a Greenwich Public School parent, a friend, a neighbor, an ally, and advocate for all things GPS. I'm a respected member of the community, having served on the RTM, RTC, and Board of Social Services. We, the assistant deans, were informed as recently as 3 weeks ago that the funding for the 3.0 assistant deans was not allocated for the 18-19 budget. Why are we throwing away the model after only 12 weeks of implementation? In fact, proposal to eliminate the 3.0 assistant deans was presented by Havemeyer PBS administration in mid-September after only 3 weeks of implementation. We are a data-driven district. What was the pre and post data that was considered to eliminate these pilot positions? I assure you, I would have never considered leaving my position in student activities and taking a salary cut had I known that this was only a 1-year position. It's simply not fair to the students, the parents, and the Greenwich Public Schools staff and other community agencies who have come to rely on us. As deans, we share the responsibility with the House administrators for meeting the needs of students with special needs in his or her house. We work with special ed students to help maintain academic achievement at Greenwich High School. The assistant deans are collectively scheduled to chair PPTs for 69% of house-based special ed students and 60% of articulation PPTs for incoming ninth grade students this school year. Furthermore, the role of assistant dean is directly aligned and supports the district vision and mission along with the strategic plan. I'm here to shed some light on the importance of this position as it relates to the vision and mission of Greenwich Public Schools with a story. This school year, I met and worked directly with a student who was put on an attendance contract for loss of credit. This student met with me weekly. In the meantime, I chaired his PPT, and having built a strong rapport with the student, made the meeting more relevant and meaningful to the student and his family. At the end of the first marking period, this student was granted credit and is now on track to graduate in June of 2018. For this reason, and so many more, too numerous to mention, the assistant dean's position is critical to the positive school climate of Greenwich High School. We strongly believe that you should know the significance of our role and how this position enhances and supports each student to reach and expand their potential. Thank you again for your time.
I will say, my name is Laura Boyd. I am next on the list of speakers, and I just wanted to inform you that I am an assistant dean, the 1.0 assistant dean. I, for a number of years, have been a special education teacher as well, and I just wanted to echo everything that that Diane Chapetta Fox had just stated. It really echoes what we all do on a day-to-day basis, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Laura.
Mayor Merrill and Amy Such.
Good evening. Ann and I are here to also provide another perspective on the Assistant Dean question. My name is Maria Merrill, and we are the co-presidents of the GHS PTA. We stand before you tonight to advocate for keeping all 5 Assistant Deans at the high school. We understand that 3 positions are not included in the 18-19 budget. However, we believe that the Assistant Deans add great value to our student body. The Assistant Deans serve several roles within the GHS community. The Assistant Deans provide extensive support to the House Administration in handling special education administrative responsibilities. This frees up time for the House Administrator to spend time observing classes, providing feedback to teachers, and ensuring that each house is supporting the most rigorous learning environment for all of the students. The Assistant Deans work proactively with special education and at-risk students. Not only is this an important benefit for these students, but it also saves time and money for the district in the long run, as the Assistant Deans are proactively intervening with students and identifying issues and potential issues before they evolve into more costly interventions in the future. Our students truly appreciate having the Assistant Deans in the houses, as they add a stronger sense of community and school spirit to the students' daily lives. You may have noticed on Twitter and in the press some photos of the fall activities in the houses. For Halloween, the faculty in many of the houses either dressed in costumes or decorated their houses for the holiday. Currently, each house is competing in penny wars and a food drive for Thanksgiving to raise funds and meals for the less fortunate. These small gestures make the students feel like they are part of a family and a home that cares about them and their emotional well-being. The leadership at Greenwich High School feels that they have seen several early signs of success with the establishment of an Assistant Dean in each house, and would like to continue to prove out their benefit for all of our students. The GHS PTA believes that the Assistant Deans play a critical role that benefits all of our students, and would ask the Board of Education to continue funding these positions.
Elizabeth DeHaven.
Good evening, Chairman Scher, Dr. Gilday, Board, Cabinet members, and the community. My name is Elizabeth Mendelson DeHaven. I am the proud mother of a son at North Miamis, proud stepmom of 2 sons in college, a very proud and loyal product of the Greenwich Public Schools, and I've worked in the field of education and educational research for the past 20 years. I am here tonight to quickly thank the board for finding Dr. Jill Gilday, for Dr. Gilday coming and giving our town and our students a chance. Last week, I participated in the Learning in the Brain annual conference. This organization and conference connects educators with the latest research in the brain and learning. The conference kicked off with one of the most renowned and innovative researchers in the field of education, Dr. Heidi Hayes Jacobs. Dr. Jacobs spoke about how much our learners have changed, the new challenges that brings to education, and how we as educators must prepare our learners for the future. Then she profiled a district and a superintendent who was an extraordinary example of a leader who helped create an environment where all children can gain skills they need to be prepared for adulthood in the 21st century. That superintendent was our very own Dr. Jill Gilday. The over 700 educators, leaders, and teachers were looking around the room and saying to themselves, we need a Dr. Jill Gilday, and we have her. So I'm here tonight, as I said, to thank the board for finding Dr. Gilday and for Dr. Gilday coming to us. But more importantly, I'm here to urge the board, the parents, the entire community to commit their support to Dr. Gilday and give her the time and the funds that she needs to make Greenwich Public School District a place where every one of our children is so deeply understood by their teachers and leaders, so that they can provide our children with the tools that they're going to need to succeed in the future.
Is there anyone else who wants to address the board? With that, we'll close the public hearing. I will move on first and foremost to monthly reports. First, we'll hear from the superintendent.
Well, thank you so much for that comment. I had no idea. I guess that tells you be careful, right? You never know what things that you do and who's watching and who's saying that. But thank you, Dr. Jacobs. Was able to visit my last district as part of an international study, and it was brilliant to have her there. It was wonderful, and she was able to experience what the kids were doing with personalized learning. So it's great to hear that that resonated with her, because she is global. You know, she goes everywhere. So thank you. That was very, very nice of you to share. So once we get the logistics of busing worked out, I'm guessing, you know, that we can get back to that important work of personalized learning, which actually is going on in our district every day. And I'm getting great stories each week from Dr. Winters and also from the principals throughout the school district. So it is happening, and I'm seeing little bits of it, but I would love to spend more time doing that. But instead, we are looking at optimizing our bus routing. We are continuing to work daily with our partners at STA to do that. We have an external civil engineering professor doing an algorithmic study for us, looking at our routes. So that's an interesting project. And we are awaiting our final report from SBC, because their contract concluded October 31st, and their report is due to us by November 30th. We continue to aggregate information to report out changes and modifications we're trying in tweaking our system adjustments. We deployed the sleep survey to our high school students in October, and we're on target for our student, staff, and family survey to begin the week of November 27th, and we will value that participation. So I'm hoping people will take the time to share in that brief survey. It won't take an awful long time to take it. I think they're estimating 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes.
Except the student survey will not be ready for the 27th.
Okay, that one will follow. Okay, great. As long as we get that information, it's terrific. So we are looking at all kinds of data as we look at start time shift, and as with any shift, just with the personalized learning shift as well, you have to take some small steps. You have to look at leading indicators. You have to look at short-term pros and cons, and then what is your long-term focus. So we're looking at all of those aspects as we review this shift. In being new to Greenwich, I was really impressed with everything that happened for Veterans Day. Oh my goodness, the schools do an amazing job. The town does an amazing job acknowledging current and past veterans. Ceremonies were well attended and well planned, and I really felt proud to be a Greenwich resident throughout the week. And I love that it extended beyond just one day. So very well done to the community. And with November, we have Thanksgiving. We take a moment to pause and consider all we are grateful for at this wonderful time of year. I really enjoy the fall season each year, and Thanksgiving does give us that perfect pause to hug those children, remember our families, and prepare for the winter ahead. Thank you.
Questions for Dr. Gilday? Okay. With that, I'm going to start with officers, committees, and liaisons. I'm going to start down at this end. Laura, did you have anything from your committee to report, or committees?
I'll just give a quick report on the ad hoc budget and long-range facilities planning committee. We met on November 6th. We had a preview of the capital plan needs. It was a draft plan. The work is very thorough. I commend Lori and Dan Watson, our new Director of Facilities, along with our partners at KG&D, who are doing the Master Facilities Plan. We recognize there are a number of needs. We're prioritizing them in terms of safety, security, aging infrastructure, ADA, accessibility. There's a number of needs with respect to HVAC needs and some new water, I don't know the right term, but the way the water comes in and out of the buildings is identified as a couple of issues, hot and cold water returns.
So again, it was a draft. The board will see the capital plan on November 27th. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to say we approve the minutes of that meeting tonight. So really the role of the committee is sort of wrapped up for now. The board will take on the budget. I think the committee will cease to meet for a bit until the new board assembles and decides committee assignments. But we've wrapped up our work, and I think it's been very productive. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Barbara, anything from policy governance?
PGC committee, myself, Dr. Francis, and Mr. Bernstein, and along with Dr. Gilday and Dr. Winters and Mr. Pietrowski have been working very hard on the graduation requirements revision of that policy. We are just a few little edits away from completing that draft, which we will send to you as soon as those are completed. It's been a real team effort, and I think the board should be very pleased with it. It's a more visionary look at graduation requirements than the typical. We'll also be receiving, and this should make Jennifer Dayton very happy, a policy on multiple pathways that will kind of give a broader aspect to the pathways to graduation, which again is looking towards the future and what kids will be able to do in different ways, and falls in perfect sync with our goal of personalized learning. So I look forward to sending that out to you very shortly. Oh, and one other thing, we are in the process now of engaging a facilitator to help with the move of our policy system over to the new CABE policy system, which should be a great saving in time for both administrators, the PGC committee, and everybody else in the administration. So look forward to that.
Dr. Francis, anything from SST?
So two things. Well, SST, we have not met recently, but the administration I know has been very actively working on a number of issues and will be updating us. And clearly, I think the whole board is quite engaged in a number of aspects related to that. The other is for liaison to the Alliance. A couple things. As Thanksgiving comes, so does Turkey Trot, our yearly event. And in fact, I forgot to ask, but I'm assuming they still have the school competition, which they usually have every year, to see greatest attendance to that. There's obviously participation from all community members is possible as well. And apparently Wednesday is the deadline to guarantee getting your t-shirt. And of course, thank you to sponsors who are helping that. And of course, the Alliance is a wonderful partner with us in the schools. Not to forget the wonderful Tuning Into Music, which is a long-standing program, the Greenwich Alliance, which is doing very well. The other thing is to ask board members, the Alliance is in the process really of doing a strategic evaluation of their vision and their plans and how they're going to engage with the community, looking at their grants program, looking at their scholarship program, looking at AVID, looking at a number of things, but sort of thinking about how they want to focus and move forward. And so if board members do have ideas, to certainly let Julie know that as they would like to consider all perspectives in terms of that. And that's it.
Christine.
Okay. Try it again.
So Friday, November 3rd, I was a requested speaker to PTAC. I presented an overview of the budget development process, the impact on Greenwich of state budget decisions, and I took questions on the outlook for 2018. Tomorrow, I will represent Greenwich at the CABE Delegate Assembly for our next legislative agenda. Friday and Saturday is the annual CABE Convention for the professional development of board members and superintendents. I will be moderating a workshop and serving as a mentor to a brand new board member in Fairfield County in my area director role. And that's it from me.
Ms. Applebaum? No? Mr. Bernstein?
When I have a date for the shovel ceremony at New Lib, I'll let everybody know.
And Lauren, did you?
Sure, absolutely.
Did you have anything you wanted to update on?
I guess the only thing to announce is if it takes place, LIUNA arbitration, December 18th.
Wouldn't that be nice? Hopefully keep your fingers crossed. It's time to bring that to conclusion. for the board and for the employees, more importantly for the employees. Any other questions? No. With that, we're going to move on to action items. The first item that's before us is new course proposals for 2018-19 program of studies, particularly grades 6 through 12. As you'll recall, we looked at the item in our work session and discussed it to move us along. Can I have a motion to? Thank you. Can I?
Just need to get a little closer to your...
Is it me? Okay, yeah. It's always me. Yeah. Can I have a motion to accept the recommendation for new course proposals? Dr. Francis, Dayton and Francis. I guess it depends if you look left or right first. Discussion questions. Dr. Francis.
I'm certainly supporting these courses. I would say, sort of in the future, it would be lovely to, I think, understand the bigger picture of where the department and where the curriculum would like to go. What are some of the thoughts about how do you broaden that? Because it does seem like this is the first phase, and so it'd be nice to understand sort of that bigger picture in terms of how those decisions are being made.
I want to echo that. I was really surprised, and maybe I just wasn't paying attention prior, but that our educational philosophy, particularly as it relates to history, was one that was focused on this choice through area studies, but that the bedrock of Western civilization is not even represented as a class anywhere in our curriculum. I was really surprised by that when that was presented. It was a little disappointing. As a result, I think it's important that at some point we engage in a broader dialogue, because we see this thing as individual courses, but we don't discuss the overall educational strategy or large overarching goals that we try to have, particularly as it relates to this. And I think, Dr. Gilday, when we come around to a monitoring report or whatever it is on the subject, it might be, I would encourage the board to be maybe talking about those bigger, broader questions. And I realize we have an obligation under state law to approve courses, approve curriculum. But I think I'd be very interested in having that bigger, broader discussion than just, piecemeal each course when we see it one at a time. So, and I think you've heard my comments on Western civilization. I mean, I think that's pretty remarkable that we don't have that as a bedrock in our educational philosophy on history, but that's a subject for another day. Anything else? Ms. O'Neill.
I think we also need a process, a better timing of when those reports come to us, so that when it's a proposal, it's truly a proposal. We don't find out that they've already spent the last summer spending, staff development time and money to develop a whole program, and then so we're getting the information much too late. So I think it's up to the board or up to the administration really to come back to the board with a better cycle of informing the board about changes in curriculum and approving curriculum and so on and so forth.
Ms. Dayton.
I would be happy to work on that in Curriculum Council.
Okay. More on this? The item is before us. I'm sorry, Ms. Applebaum.
I just want to caution, I understand the desire for early information and to not have people spin wheels, but having watched the process over the years, I just want to caution the board that you don't look for things too soon before they can have the answers that the board, to the questions that the board usually asks, so you're not preempting something that might be a good idea if it had enough time to be fleshed out. So figuring out what that appropriate balance will be.
Therefore, okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of accepting all these new course proposals for 2018 program of study? 8-0. The next item is the enrollment report. I know we had a lengthy discussion about that. I believe there were some questions that people asked and answered, or asked, and I believe were answered. But just to go along, I want to be sure that everyone's questions were answered. Anybody? Ms. Erickson.
I might have missed it, and if I did, I apologize. But I thought when we discussed this at the work session, we were going to insert some language of a caveat nature to say that this is the Dr. Grip report is a perfectly fine statistical model, but there were a couple of things in there that should be viewed perhaps with caution because the local knowledge wasn't part of his scope of work. And so I thought there was going to be at least a few lines saying something to that effect. Did that get in there and I missed it?
It says we will add these caveats. We did add to the capacity chart on page 13 something to that effect, as well as the report clearly states in the caveats about what the GRIP report did not cover any change in public or private school options, and he was never tasked with forecasting a new Lebanon scenario. So we had that information come back. So if you have a specific request, let me know and we'll get it back in. And
Actually, that's our challenge, right? So when we accept this, it's disposed of and done. So.
And that's the challenge because I just want to, be sure we're telling the story appropriately because we wouldn't want this report to be taken perhaps out of context without, that additional knowledge base. So I missed it, but I want to be sure it's strong enough.
Okay. Ms. Dayton.
Thank you for the note at the bottom of page 13. When will we have the actual master facility classroom chart? Is it February?
I don't know. Master plan people?
I believe it's January or February is the plan.
I think we've got, yeah, okay. Is it?
but I don't know that we incorporated it into this report.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Mr. Bernstein.
I'm all for postponing this and making sure that the language in it is right, although I think we are relying upon some of this for our budget document. So I guess, Dr. Gilday, do we need to approve this tonight, or do we have time to get that cleanup done?
We can bring it back with the addendum to it.
I'd like to make a motion to table until the work session.
Yeah, you need to make a motion to postpone to a date certain.
Second.
Yeah.
I move to postpone until the next work session.
Hold on, Jill, when would you have?
Let's just do it November 3rd.
Well, 27th is a budget meeting. Well, to Mr. Bernstein's point, if it's an input to the budget, we should probably have it done by then. We can add it to that agenda, but are you gonna be ready to have it done by then? Okay. Okay. 27th. It's just, I realize it's a budget meeting, but we're gonna add an item because it's connected to the budget. We're free and loose with our agenda these days. It all works. Yeah, so do you want to make a motion to?
I'll modify my motion to bring it up at the budget meeting on the 27th.
So Mr. Bernstein moves that the item is postponed till the meeting on the 27th. Is there a second? Dr. Francis, all those in favor? 8-0. Okay,
Will
so
you
that-
send your specific question, Laura? So make sure we get the specific answer that you got.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think. The next item is a budget resolution. Ms. O'Donnell.
Thank you. The red line version and a clean version of the budget resolution, which we've discussed at a couple of prior meetings, is being presented for your approval this evening.
Questions? Ms. Erickson.
So I think this works. I mean, what we've added in section 41D is additional language to allow the district to pursue additional grants up to $25,000 before having to seek the authority outside the Board of Ed. We basically just copied the language from what was added last year for the donations for athletic facilities. I don't know that all of it's applicable with respect to land use, but again, if it's not applicable, it doesn't apply, so it doesn't bother me. So I think this does what we intended it to do.
Ms. O'Neill.
I was just wondering whether it'd be more beneficial to have that amount raised to $50,000 just to cut down on the back and forth meetings to the BET. 25, you know.
It's currently 5.
I know, but so I would say, why go for half a dozen when you can go for a dozen? I'd say, you know, go for it. Then maybe the compromise will be 25. If you ask for 25 and the compromise is 12, you know, suggestion.
Is there a motion to modify? Guys, we got, yeah, if there's a motion, I'd like to suggest that we take whatever action we need to take these items up when they're on our agenda. So this is the second or third time we've looked at this, right? Thank you, by the way, Lori, for all your hard work on it. I know we've been, but if we want to make a modification, I would suggest we make it now, if we can.
Right.
Okay?
So, this one right there.
Barbara, before you make your motion, can I just ask, are you looking to raise the federal government and state grants in addition to external grants? Do you want to raise the cap for both?
Yeah, we could. You ready, Barbara? Make the motion?
So, I would look at which one here? Okay, so on 4C, to increase the amount to from 25,000 to 50,000, and then on D, do the same, increase the amount from 25,000 to 50,000.
Who's second? Ms. Dates? The changes are, let me read them. It's for item 41C. It currently says the federal government and/or state of Connecticut grants not listed above up to 25,000. The new language shall be federal government and/or state of Connecticut grants not listed up to 50,000. Then in 41D, the first line, non-federal government and/or non-state of Connecticut grants, it currently says up to 25,000. Ms. O'Neill is proposing to modify that to up to 50,000. So there are two changes. It's item 41C, first line, end of the first line, and the end of the first line in 41D. Yes? Yes. Okay. There was a second over here for that, right? Okay. All those in favor of accepting that amendment? 8-0, I believe. Yes, 8-0. Okay. Any other questions about this? I have one, but anybody else? Ms. Erickson.
I would just like to ask Dr. Gilday if she thinks that there are grant opportunities up to 50,000, that this would sort of open the pipeline to get that started, because the whole goal here is to incent people to apply for grants, to not have to drown in paperwork and various authorities and approving mechanisms. So do you think that this is something that will prime the pump and get us started?
I actually do think it's a great timing because we're working collaboratively as well with the Conservation Department over at Town Hall on looking at some of these environmental grants, and they're usually right around that 50,000 mark.
So is 50,000 the right number? Going once, going twice?
I think it's fine.
All right, so now the motion is amended, is that what
Now's the time.
Okay, are we changing that again? No. Okay, we're at 50,000. Okay, any other questions? Lori, I have a question for you. I could not discern what the deletion of the gifts for athletic equipment and improvements was deleted and then it was replaced. I couldn't discern what was the difference. Because it says over in the right, it had something to do with formatting, but was there something else?
So this format had to be copied from the PDF version into the Word document, so you're going to see a lot of formatting changes, literally just formatting. I did not change any of the
The
language.
language is identical. What's that? I love the red line, thank you, because then I can find it. But, okay. Any other questions on this item? All right. The item is before us as amended. Yes, the item is before us as amended. All those in favor of accepting budget resolution for 2018-19? 8-0. Excellent. We're moving along nicely. Financial and staffing report, Ms. O'Donnell.
The financial report for October is being presented for your approval. Are there any questions I can answer on the report?
I'm sorry, Mr. Bernstein.
So this might be a question more for Mary than for you, but the first area of concern is SPED, and it looks like the expenditure on instruction-tuition is expected to be over budget, so maybe we can figure out why we're there already in November.
We have more students outplaced this year than we did in the past, so those tuitions have already hit the budget. We've done the POs for those kids who are in the placements. We also have had more beginning of the year settlements this year than we've had in the past. So I'm hoping that we will have seen most of the expenditures already in the budget, and that shouldn't be more coming, but I can't guarantee that right now. That line, every year, we go through this with the tuition line. This year, we got hit hard early in the year. Again, I'm hoping that it was hit hard early and that we'll level out a little as the year goes on.
And just a follow-up, I know we tracked settlements for the last 4 or 5 finance reports at the end of last year. Is this something we're going to continue to see in the future? And I'm asking that as we're building out the budget book for next year.
Yes, and you will see an increase in the 208 line in the proposed budget.
Ms. Davis.
I was wondering if there's a natural calendar cycle in terms of when we expect tuition out of district to come to us for consideration. In other words, is it at entry point at the beginning of the academic year or not necessarily? It can be in any month. Is there a wave effect? Is there a trend line?
Yes.
Okay, what is that trend line? Because I'm starting
Yes
to
to all those
worry.
questions. We know in June, those students who've been recommended by their PPTs to roll into the next school year. So we have that number going in. Unless those students move or something happens, that's an expected number that moves over. There are certain students that move into the district in September that come with out-of-district placements. Those are kind of wild cards. We never know who's coming. If they've been placed out of district by their prior district, we honor those IEPs because we don't know those students, so we have to assume that the district that outplaced them made the best decision. We revisit them as we get to know the student once they've been in our system. Settlements generally happen at the beginning of the year and the end of the year. So students whose parents have withdrawn them and come back to us for placements at the beginning, and then parents who have been putting tuition down in private school placements, that usually comes around April, May, and June, so we'll see those settlements then. So we know some at the end of the year, there's some volatility at the beginning of the year, and then there's those 2 points where we see most of the settlements coming in.
Other questions from Isabel? I have 2, Lori. Our budget is built that it has already built into it a financial assumption about positions that will they'll be open at some point during the year. I think it's a 1.4 million. It's a big number. And I see here the list of the vacancy report. I was just wondering how you track and trend that, and hard to know early in a forecast how we're doing, because we're in month 3, I guess. No, we're in month 5. Well, July, August, right? So, do you know how we're doing with that? Do you have any idea yet?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's actually something that I would like us to start reporting on, something that we would call progress toward salary savings or toward mandated savings, however we want to term it. I don't have an update at this time.
Okay. The other question that I had was, there's a reference in here to excess costs. That's probably the wrong term. Anticipated excess costs related to start time. When are we going to know what, I presume those are primarily attributed to transportation?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you know, it says in here where it's being developed, do you know when we'll get that?
We should have it within the next week. My plan was to update it for the next financial report.
Okay, great. Ms. Applebaum.
When you report that number, I think it will be helpful to have it broken out as to transportation related to actually transporting the students to get to and from school, and then separately the transportation as it relates to athletics and what might be temporary to accommodate the need for lights this year, and what might potentially go away after that.
Okay. Ms. Erickson.
I just wanted to briefly look at the food services budget, because I know that there's a negative variance attributable to, I assume, just reduced breakfast revenue at the high school with the buses arriving not as early as they had been. And I was just wondering if this is just a point-in-time reduction, or if this is something that's going to trend throughout the year. And at some point, I know the RFP is hit the street. I think you're opening up the bids later this week for the food services consultant, which I think will be helpful. But at some point before you go to the BET, in end of January, early February, I think we just need to give people a preview of what's happening so no one is surprised.
Is there a...
So,
is it...
The question, I said a lot in there. So the question was, there's a $66,000 variance. And I wasn't sure if that's just basically from the start of school, or if that's something that's going to be the trend is going to be continued over the year, so it's going to be a much, perhaps bigger number, and that we should, at some point, should factor that in, especially if the town is expecting us to whittle down that fund balance. Again, it's just preparation and education and working out the kinks.
So we did see a little bit of a decline here as a result of the services toward the end of the day. We are making modifications to the expense side of this in order to try to level that out a bit. This would be the projection for year end. It's possible that things can change throughout the year as it progresses.
Ms. Dayton.
On that topic, I noticed we're hiring food service workers, yet we have declining sales. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Vacancies.
I think they're generally opening up. I don't know if that's correct, Bob.
As I strangle somebody. So we have unique vacancies at other schools besides the high school. And Mr. Hopkins is also taking a look at the staffing level and the amount of hours that the folks are working at the high school to see if he needs to make some adjustments because of the offset of revenue in terms of does he need to reduce the staffing shifts by 15 minutes a day, half hour a day in order to make, to recapture some of the lost revenue. So we're not paying out needlessly, so to speak, for the staffing levels. He has taken a close look at that, and we did have a discussion with the bargaining unit about that, I think, last week.
Okay. The item is before us. All those in favor of accepting the financial status report? I don't see all. Okay, 7. Oh, we do 8-0. Okay. I didn't know if somebody was voting no. With that, we're on to transfers. Ms. O'Donnell. Ms. O'Donnell.
There's one correction to report to the transfer schedule that you received. Transfer number 1 is entitled under the Department for Math. It's actually teaching and learning. Just wanted to make that correction.
Thank you, because it seemed odd we were paying for photocopiers out of math.
Any other questions on this? Okay, can I have a motion to accept the transfers? Ms. Dayton, Ms. Dr. Francis, all those in favor of accepting transfers over $10,000 or more? 8-0. Okay. School calendar for 2019-20. Dr. Gilday, I think this is going to take a little bit of a explanation and recommendation, yes? Because we're going to approve it. Which one are we approving? Right, Harry, do you want this one? It's A and B, right?
We have 2 options.
Yeah, and is there a recommendation on one or the other?
So I think the differences are described on the cover page, so it's really just a professional learning shift. So it is whether we're going with 5 early release days or whether we're reducing some of the early release for full days. And I think we heard the teacher preference was for, I want to say they said version A. Is that right? Which reduces 2 of the early release days. But that does mean a student attendance 180 rather than 181. So those are kind of the trade-offs.
Questions for Dr. Gilday? Mr. Bernstein.
Well, I'm actually just curious. Carol, if you had more time and you polled your members, do you think you'd get a different result?
I don't think so. I think, I really... Well, and there was some nodding going on over here, and I unofficially asked a bunch of people. I mean, I could easily do it. I mean, I could easily do it.
That your personal preference, having a full day, makes sense.
I think it makes sense for staff development, and it also makes sense for instruction.
Right, I would think parents would appreciate it too. The
I was
fewer
gonna add
early release, the better.
Do we know that, actually? I mean, do we?
Not for sure.
No, because it's an interesting question. I think there are some parents who...
Like dentist appointment.
Well, but there's also, yeah, I wasn't worried about them. I wasn't worried about the one that is at home. I was more worried about the person who then has to figure out childcare because it's half a day versus, they can plan it because it's a whole day. Yeah, no, right. Yeah, no, but there's some people who don't do that. My question was, do we know, or it's a little bit of a osmosis-y guess?
Yeah, we don't have any guidance for one or the other.
Okay, so we make the best choice we can. Okay, Ms. O'Neill.
I was just wondering if this had any impact on the unions that are not under our control. How does that impact them?
They're not under our control, I don't know.
Well, they are or they aren't, so I don't know.
We have some interesting things, we have some interesting differences. Town Hall is closed on Veterans Day and Columbus Day, we're not. We have some days like that that are different.
So do those people then come to work?
Yes.
So then this is something that you'd have to, because they'd be working less time, right? Unions?
Are they working less time? No, because they still have the 100 and, well, there you go, Bob will tell you, but I think it's 180.
So it shouldn't be an issue. Those that work 12 months are going to work the day no matter what. There are some staff that their work year is linked to the student work year. So if students are here, they work. If students aren't here, they don't work. So that's not going to be any different than it's how it's currently set up now. And they'll have a year and change in advance to plan for it. So, for example, nurses work a certain number of days. They work the student days plus a certain number of days to get to the 187. So In this case, they'd have 180 student days, and they'd have the 7 full days beyond that.
How does that work for paras then?
Paras work the school year plus 2 additional days.
Right. Other questions? Ms. Dayton?
I really love option A for the 2 full days for professional development. And for parents, I love that 3-day weekend in October for college visits. And that is a personal favorite, given the age of my children. But I imagine many other parents also are in the same situation. And I have to admit that this year I did book us upstate New York on Columbus Day to the severe irritation of my son, who informed me we have school. So I had to cancel. And now I can plan way ahead and get a lot of college visits done during those open houses. Thank you.
Jill, I had a question. Just, I know we talked about this last time, but I wasn't sure I completely processed the answer. Is there a reason we can't do PD on Mondays or Fridays? What was the? It's better for families. No, I understand that, but this one's this is 1920, right? You can plan that far enough ahead. Was there some reason? Well,
But I was just, you
Hold on,
said
Dr.
you said it's
Francis.
better for families, and I was just wondering where you got that data from.
I've had multiple families tell me they would rather, if we're going to have a day, don't stick it in the middle of the week, put it on one end or the other. Yeah, well,
From what I understand, I'm still learning everything. It's a 117-page PD catalog so in the 117-page PD catalog, it has this all outlined as their procedure and how they do the Wednesdays. So Wednesdays traditionally in this district seem to be end-of-the-day meetings. One Wednesday it is full staff. One Wednesday it's departmental. One Wednesday it's they go out and do their own PD according to their professional learning plan. So it's based on that, from what I understand. So I don't know if that's tradition in Greenwich or contractual. It's contractual. There you go.
In addition to that, putting a half-day on a Monday or a Friday would result in chronic absenteeism.
Well, I wasn't going to say a half day. I was going to say if we were going to do full days and kids are not going to be in school, why wouldn't they be attached? Could they be attached to a weekend? Right? I mean, I get the part of half days. Half days close to a weekend doesn't help, right? I think both of them attached to a weekend? I don't think so. Are they?
They are.
I will say that Columbus Day, though, that's actually a national school visit day. Most colleges have special programming on Columbus Day, so that is a nice day to not have to have the kids take off.
That's not Columbus Day.
Columbus Day's the weekend.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, that's...
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah.
Indigenous people.
Ms. Raven.
Just piggybacking on Ms. Dayton's comments, having have 2 children that graduated from college already, a lot of colleges give that fall break as well. So it would be an interesting experience for the students to have when they're in, before they go to college and when they get to college.
Ms. Erickson.
I just think as we're making this transition to personalized learning, to have a full day of professional development versus a couple of half days in the afternoons, as Ms. Sutton made the point earlier, teachers are teaching for the better part of the day and then regrouping and being receptive to new learning themselves. I think it makes sense. And it's a little bit of a quirk of a calendar, as each year is a little bit different, but I support version A. And I'll be happy to move it if...
Yeah, hold on. Jill, which one were you recommending?
I'm a year-round employee, so I'm happy with either of them personally, but if teachers prefer option A, I would align with that way of thinking.
So the administration is recommending A. Okay. With that, can I have a motion? Yeah, no. Can I have a motion to accept a calendar A, school calendar 2019-20?
So moved.
Mr. Bernstein. Ms. Dayton. All those in favor of accepting that as the calendar? Mr. Bernstein? Or voting? 8-0. Okay, that item is disposed of. The 2018-19 BOE meeting calendar, Dr. Gilday.
Sorry, I was going to announce that volleyball's on their way to state Saturday. Good news.
Okay, the calendar's before us. Any other questions or comments about this calendar? This is the proposed meeting calendar for, board's proposed meeting calendar for 2018-19, has dates in it. I think it was discussed at the last meeting. I presume people went out and got the feedback they needed from board members, both incoming, returning and incoming. At least we talked about that on Monday. Checking with all the board members, make sure the calendar worked. We did that.
So
Okay.
Peter, I actually would like to have a discussion tonight to get the experience of our departing board members, but I would like to move at an appropriate time that we table this until the board is seated.
Okay. And Peter, was there a reason for that?
Yeah, absolutely. We should have a discussion with the incoming board as an entirety as to whether this works or not.
Okay, I think what we did in the chair meeting this week is we asked Jill to go out and talk to the incoming board members about the calendar, and I think she just told us we did that, yes?
Well, I'm happy to make the motion.
Okay, now
If
we
enough
have
the
it.
members vote for it, then we can table it until the new board is seated.
Okay. Does everyone want to defer the calendar? If you want to defer the calendar.
I was just going to ask one question, which was, did we figure out what the date is that we have to have it by? Sometime in January or something, right? Yeah, so we're fine, yeah. So I would support postponing it until we have our new.
Okay, so Mr. Bernstein, I think, is making a motion to postpone. Who, you're seconding. All those in favor of postponing this item?
Well, I just want to,
I was trying to discuss.
It's a good time. Yeah.
I was
Okay.
trying, yeah, I'm with you. I don't mind postponing to get the input from the new board members, but we're not changing a lot. It's still Thursday meetings, it's still twice a month-ish, so there's not drastic changes. It's how we conduct the content of the meeting that's changing, but I'm fine either way.
We're also talking about time changes, starting things at 4 o'clock on some instances. You're talking about the recognitions being moved to separate instances. So I think it's worth a discussion, so thank you for letting us do that.
This is so far in the future, I don't really have an opinion about this. I mean, this is 18-19 starting next August. Dr. Gilday, we had a retreat, candidly, everybody was there. Dr. Gilday previewed almost a month and a half ago the changes that she was thinking that the board should take up. It's fine, we can do it. Let's Peter Bernstein's made a motion to postpone it. Second, let's dispose of that item. Is there further discussion on Mr. Bernstein's motion? None. Here, Laura.
Are you postponing to a date certain? I mean, I think that's probably something you should do. Or you can talk about it in agenda planning.
Well, a motion to table, somebody has to take it off the table, but I understand that's what needs to be, a motion to postpone.
I think we can take it up in agenda planning.
Yeah, well, but we need the motion in order.
The motion is in order. The motion is to postpone. We'll take it up during agenda planning.
Okay, so, let's pick a date. Peter, because if we pick a date, there's only 2 motions you can make to postpone. One is to postpone indefinitely, which kills it. The other one is to postpone to a date certain. So if you could help us
We
here.
usually do our scheduling during agenda planning, but if that's fine, if you'd like to do that.
Just-
So we'll do the work session on December 7th.
Great.
We'll amend my motion.
Great, perfect. Second. Yep. Yes.
I'd like the other board members to consider, when we do take it up again, there was invaluable community comment about not starting at 6, but starting at 6:30, and I fully support that. So that's something to ponder.
Okay. So the motion is before us to postpone until work session, December work session. And then if somebody wants to postpone it past that, they could do that at that time. All those in favor of postponing this item? 8-0. Okay. The last item is agenda plan. As you were reminded, our agenda plan format is a little different now. We don't formally vote on the agenda plan as we did. We kind of follow it as a guideline, and then largely what goes on the calendar, what have you, is decided first and foremost by the superintendent. Is there anything we can discuss on agenda plan? Is there any items that need to be added? Mr. Bernstein.
So I would like to add an item. I would like an update on the remediation at Western Middle School and Greenwich High School. It's been a while.
Okay. So Kim, can you just work with Jill and figure out when that can come onto the agenda? Ms. Erickson?
Just because I'm doing my house cleaning, the board still needs to accept the PAC in the music instructional space. I know Ms. Raven is the liaison. I think there were a couple cleanup items, and I know that Ms. O'Donnell is aware about the CO issues at Hamilton Ave and Glenville. But I just don't want the board to lose sight of that.
Okay. Kim, can you add that to the list for Jill? Okay. With that, no other, I'm sorry, Ms. O'Neill?
I think it's here, but I didn't check till now, that we need to have the graduation requirements and the multiple pathways on the work session for December, and then as a vote at the business meeting of December.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what we have to do with the agenda plan now is just, we give the list to Jill, we give the list to Kim, and then she works and Jill proposes when that'll come on to the meeting. Is the order of business now. Okay, anything else to be added to the agenda plan? Anything else to be taken off the agenda plan? Okay, with that, we're done with that. There being no other business before the board, Mr. Bernstein?
Actually, maybe one of our departing members would like to adjourn.
Ms. Erickson, seconded by Ms. Applebaum. We will miss you. Just for technicality, all those in favor of supporting their motion to adjourn? 8-0. Thank you.